But we start tonight with justice, a symbol of what we're marching against in this country. A shocking racist email from a federal judge who, unless we act, will be back on the bench tomorrow making decisions. Montana's top judge, a Bush appointee named Judge Cebull, has apologized for emailing a joke suggesting that President Obama's late mother had sex with a dog. You heard right, with a dog. At the top of the email, Cebull wrote, quote, "I want all of my friends to feel what I felt when I read this. I hope it touches your heart like it did mine." He later admitted he sent it out because he was, quote, anti-Obama. After getting caught, Cebull asked an appeals court to review the incident for possible misconduct. He then wrote a letter to President Obama directly saying, quote, "Honestly, I don't know what else I can do." I know what else you can do, Judge. You can resign. A man with these opinions has no right to sit in judgment of others. But Cebull is due back on the bench tomorrow. Many of us have said things we regretted. Many of you at home have said things you wish you'd never said. But we don't sit on a federal bench. We don't use federal emails to send around racist and misogynist messages and then expect the public to expect that we can impartially and fairly sit in judgment with the federal government's backing. Cebull should resign. Joining me now is Montana State Representative Franke Wilmer, who's running for Congress in November, and Joe Madison, nationally syndicated host of Mornings with Madison on Sirius XM Radio. Representative Wilmer, let me start with you. More than 1,600 people have already signed an online petition demanding Cebull resign. Isn't the verdict of the people already clear on this matter?
Well, yes, Reverend Sharpton, I think it's absolutely clear that the judge did demonstrate not just poor judgment, but in the Constitution, what's called bad behavior. Judges are appointed for life, but the Constitution actually says they serve during good behavior. The best judgment he could exercise now is to resign, acknowledging that his conduct does not meet that standard in the Constitution.
Now, Joe Madison, so one does not think that we're playing politics here, Representative Wilmer. One of the largest, if not the largest, newspapers in Montana, the Billings Gazette, said in an editorial on yesterday, quote, "From now on, his image will be stained with the ugly truth about the message he distributed. We call on Judge Cebull to put this awful incident to rest honorably by stepping down."
You should also point out, Reverend Sharpton, you should also point out that in his apology, he admitted that it was racist. That's also something that he did, and he went ahead and did it anyway. I think today we should call on a joint group of the American Bar Association and the National Bar Association. They should both come together. The National Bar Association being the African American group of lawyers, they should join with the parent American Bar Association. I think that you have individuals like Ted Turner, for example, who is one of the largest, if not the largest, landowner in Montana, along with some other prominent Americans that should join us in calling for his resignation. The thing that bothers me
I think that is all well and good, but let me ask you this for Representative Wilmer. What about the fact that the Republican candidates for president, who has an opinion on everything else and who would be appointing federal judges if any of them were successful, why aren't we hearing any of them denounce and call for this judge to step down? We hear their opinion on everything else. Can you imagine if an Obama or Clinton appointed federal judge had said this about a sitting Republican president and about his mother, that we would not hear the Republican candidates for president not come out and call for the removal of that judge?
Yes, Reverend Sharpton, and I think that you hit the nail on the head. The most disappointing thing First of all, is that people cannot go into this judge's court and expect justice. That's the first casualty here. But the next thing that bothers me, and it's similar to the reaction to Rush Limbaugh's comments, is the failure of Republican leadership, conservative leadership, to step up and condemn these kinds of statements and activities.
Now, Joe, when you look at the fact that what she just said was also reflected by the Billings Gazette editorial, saying no litigants or attorneys before him should have to wonder if his judgment is clouded by disgusting ideas conveyed in his email. I also would like to see a review of all of the cases he's had in front of him. How do we know who he's already made decisions on based on this bias? And then let me show you what some of the ordinary people in Montana had to say. Look, listen to this.
I was offended by it because he is a judge and he is in a position of authority to put people away every day.
That email was highly racist, I thought. Everybody can screw up and make a mistake, but, for him to do it from his office, that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Now, when you hear that, Joe Madison, you hear what you're talking about, the legal groups, and I'm saying the Republican candidates, the elected federal officials in Montana, kind of not saying what I think they should. Senator Tester says he's concerned. Senator Baucus says he's disappointed. It's disappointment. Representative Reedberg, concerned. None of them calling for his resignation.
And this is reflective of the Republican Party leadership. I mean, we're seeing it with Obama, these apologies that have no consequences. And I think people ought to understand one other thing. We have a Judiciary Committee of both the Senate and the House. Where is the call for an investigation? This judge should be called. There might be room for impeachment in the canons. All of this has to be considered. And it's the Republicans, for example, that run the House of Representatives. I bet you if John Conyers was still chairman of the Judiciary Committee, there would have been a hearing on this judge. And keep in mind, he's not just a federal judge. He is the chief federal judge. He's the top
in the state of Montana. That's right.
That's right.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, Joe. Let me, both of you stay with me a moment. Let me bring in Paul Rothstein, constitutional law professor at Georgetown University. Professor, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for asking.
Let me ask you, you're the expert here. What does it take to remove a federal judge from office?
Well, it has to be the impeachment process, which they tried to do to President Clinton. It requires a majority vote in the House of Representatives, and then it goes over to the Senate, and it requires 2/3 of a vote in the Senate, an actual trial in the Senate, and then 2/3 vote to kick the judge out. So it's very, very difficult, and the standard is very high. This good behavior standard that's in the Constitution has been interpreted to be the equivalent of the standard that applies to the president and other government officials, and that is high crimes and misdemeanors, which is a very high bar. So it's probably not realistic to expect that the political will, the way the congressmen are now, would be marshaled to do that. But there are other things. There are complaints that can be made to the Judicial Board, the Judicial Commission, but none of it's going to result with him being compelled to leave. There might be some other sanctions, public censure, private censure, maybe some effect on what cases are assigned him. But it's really not going to eject him. That has to be, he has to resign. Maybe public pressure can make him resign.
Well, Professor, what you're telling me then is the appeals court is reviewing this, but they may not remove him, that you don't know if the Senate or the House has the will to move him. If I'm a person in Montana, you mean I could stand in front of this guy and he could have demonstrated the judgment that would make the president's mother having had sex with a dog and the president being a result of that, and he has this kind of bias, but could sit in judgment of me and there's nothing I could do to protect myself?
It's absolutely awful. Now, it's such a biased statement. It insults women. It insults minorities. He's a litigant who belongs to those groups, and other litigants, they're not going to get a fair shake, or at least they're not going to accept that they get a fair shake. And it's important that people have respect and accept the judgments of judges. Now, what they could do is move, if they had a case, they could move for recusal of the judge to get the judge thrown off that particular case because of manifest bias. So that is something that they could do.
Well, I mean, this is shocking. We've all said things we regretted. I've said things I've regretted. But a federal judge to sit in a federal courthouse and use federal email to distribute this is alarming, to say the least. And we're not going to let it go. State Representative Franke Wilmer.
Yeah. It's also a very stupid move, but he knows about
very
email.
Stupid, but stupidity is not the end of this. This is the beginning of this. Thank you, Paul Rothstein, and of course, Joe Madison.
Thank you.
I might be my next stop. Thank you all for your time.